NSW
in Jamaica.
President Donald Trump's
solid waste reduction.
Marcus Shepard.
Good day, I'm Kimberly Broderick, and welcome to News Rewind, JNN's look at the top stories of the week that was. Workers at the state-owned oil refinery Petrojam are expressing mounting concerns about the future of their jobs and the refinery. This follows news on Monday that the United States has imposed sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil firm PDVSA, which holds a 49% stake in the oil refinery. The U.S. says the proceeds of the purchase of Venezuelan oil will be withheld from President Nicolas Maduro's government, but the company could avoid sanctions by recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. Vincent Morrison, the president of the Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees UCASE, which represents Petrojam workers, believes the latest development will have an impact on the refinery.
Although it's a bit early to say exactly what is going to be the extent of the sanctions, we are concerned. The employees are concerned. We would want to hear from the government, certainly, as to what is being done. We have a plan B, but we're not going to move unless the government, first and foremost, let us know exactly what they're doing.
Mr. Morrison says the union should have met with the commission reviewing the operations of Petrojam to discuss the concerns of workers regarding plans by the government to acquire the shares held by Venezuela. But according to Mr. Morrison, the talks have still not been held.
3 times the meetings were put off. We are still waiting to meet with the company, but we would want to know exactly what is happening here, because we think the shares that the Venezuelan company owns, we believe that if those shares are going to be divested, then certainly the employees should be able to purchase or to participate in the sale of those shares.
And Parliament's Public Accounts Committee is to meet this month to discuss the Auditor General's report on Petrojam. The Auditor General last month tabled the report on the findings of its probe into the operations of the oil refinery. It highlighted human resource and procurement breaches, billions in unaccounted for oil, lack of transparency in fuel pricing, and waste of public funds on lavish parties. And according to international media reports, shock and fear swept through the headquarters of PDVSA Monday after the U.S. imposed the sanctions aimed at limiting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's access to oil revenues. Several employees and union leaders wondered how much worse PDVSA's situation could get now that U.S. President Donald Trump's administration had frozen its crucial U.S.-based assets. In the meantime, Venezuelan opposition leader and self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido on the same day ordered Congress to appoint new boards of directors for PDVSA and its U.S. subsidiary Citgo shortly before the United States imposed the sanctions on the firm. The White House's measures to freeze PDVSA's U.S. assets, including proceeds from oil exports, and limit the company's transactions, are an attempt to largely cut off President Maduro's access to oil revenue that accounts for most of the country's income in hard currency. U.S. refineries in the United States can receive Venezuelan oil already paid for and currently at sea. Former Energy Minister Clive Mullings says he does not expect Jamaica's oil refinery Petrojam to be immediately affected by the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil firm PDVSA. PDVSA, through its subsidiary PDV Caribe, has a 49% stake in Petrojam. Sasha Lee Hamilton tells us more.
On Monday, the U.S. Treasury Secretary said the proceeds from the purchase of Venezuelan oil would be withheld from President Nicolas Maduro's government. He said PDVSA could avoid sanctions by recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's interim president. In an interview with RGR News, Mr. Mullings said the sanctions are aimed at starving the Maduro administration of funds.
And this, of course, raises questions as to whether or not this is also going to affect the dealing of Petrojam. I don't believe it will at this particular juncture, because the fact is that Petrojam is not now presently receiving oil from Venezuela. And also, the question arises as to any funds earned, revenues, whether Venezuela being entitled to that will be affected by sanctions. I don't believe so. The question is whether those funds will be paid over to the Maduro regime.
The Jamaican government is moving to take over Venezuela's shares in Petrojam through a process of compulsory acquisition. The decision followed months of negotiations during which the government said it was unable to reach an agreement on the sale price for the shares with the Venezuelans. And Mr. Mullings has suggested how Jamaica could handle the funds due to the Maduro administration for its shareholding in Petrojam in order to avoid breaching U.S. sanctions.
If it is that there is an accounting where the government or Petrojam, having received these funds, can have those funds in escrow until these matters are sorted out, well, that seems the best approach. So at this particular juncture, I don't envisage that these sanctions would have an immediate effect on Petrojam. But going forward, you never know.
Also, Mr. Mullings stated that he does not see a diplomatic option to the Venezuelan situation at this time.
Jamaica Environment Trust JET says there is confusion with regards to what has been described as an extension on the use of single-use plastic bags expected to come to an end on Thursday. More in this report again from Sasha Lee Hamilton.
JET's CEO Susan Stanley has outlined the mixed messages. She says her organization was not aware of the details in relation to this extension.
If there is this grace period, as it is being termed, is going to end on Thursday, then what is the enforcement action that is going to be taken at that point? What penalties are retailers and wholesalers looking at if they continue to distribute past this point? We've heard reference to the Trade Act being used to prosecute people who are found guilty of offences, distributing these plastics that have been banned. The fine in that act is $2 million. So does that mean that if I have a small shop and I'm found guilty of, I'm found to be distributing plastic bags, does that mean that fine can be applied, in any kind of effort to enforce this law?
Okay. So
there's this question mark as to how is this enforced? If it is that the grace period ends on Thursday, how is this enforcement action going to actually take place, and who is likely to be prosecuted, and what penalties are they going to be looking at?
She is suggesting that the education program address the topic of enforcement.
I mean, there has been some word from the government as to the laws that they are going to be using, to enforce this ban. But there is this ambiguity, and I'm hoping, they're speaking to public education continuing into February, and we really want to see that public education now includes, where it has not included so far, this more information on, the penalties if you are found in breach.
Ms. Stanley also questions when the deposit refund scheme for plastic bottles will be implemented.
Single-use plastic bottles are the number one item we collect on International Coastal Cleanup Day every year.
Yes.
They are a very visible reminder of our plastic problem in Jamaica. And we have heard for the last year or more that a deposit refund scheme is coming. But yet no date has been set, no official announcement has been made, as to how this is going to look and what that setup is going to be. And we really need to see action taken on that regard, because that is a very huge part of our waste stream.
She was speaking on JNN and Power 106 FM's Power Talk Live on Tuesday.
Mayor of Portmore, Leon Thomas, is appealing for budgetary support from the Ministry of Health as the municipality fights the growing number of suspected dengue cases. Portmore has so far recorded 3 dengue-related deaths. We have more in this report.
As up to now, we don't really receive any funding from the Minister of Health to help us to go forward. So we have to be using our own source revenue.
According to the mayor, so far the municipality has had to foot a bill of over $2 million from its own resources, which is woefully short of the estimated $7 million required to effectively control the outbreak.
When you look at the entire Portmore, and I'm talking about communities, schools, open space and things like that, there is a budget for $7.2 million, something that our engineer have put forward.
7.2 million would be the budget to
Clean Portmore, get rid of all the bulky waste, including open land. Because what happened, Michael, that we have a lot of open lands there. And people take like old fridge, old stove and dump on these premises. For example, there's a piece of land between Cumberland and Westchester. It is in a terrible condition. The jelly man is also a part of it. Because when they cut the jelly and they throw it in the bushes, the water gets inside and breed. And one of the things that we discover, that the underground cable, where you have cable and wireless, put in those cables with those manhole cover. When you lift some of those manhole, mosquitoes kill you.
He told JNN's Insight that of the 60 schools in Portmore, only 7 have been cleaned up, while pointing to one in particular.
We are seeing in Portmore where a lot of students are coming down with the virus. For Portsmouth Primary, for example, 9 students per day the school is seeing coming down with the virus that they have to send home.
We have received virus, because we can mistakenly think everything is dengue.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
They see signs of students having fever and
this is one school.
This is one school.
9
This is one school. 9 per day.
Suspected
dengue cases. We have received the correspondence. I have the correspondence. And the principal was interviewed and talked about the situation. And that is one of the schools that the little girl died from, one of the case.
The first woman to head the Police Federation has been sacked. Corporal Arlene McBean has expressed shock at her removal as chairman of the Federation after several years. The Central Executive of the Federation met on Tuesday and made the decision to remove Corporal McBean following a no-confidence motion. The General Secretary of the Federation, Inspector Sheldon Gordon, is now the new chairman. The Federation's former Legal Affairs Director, Sergeant Petray Rowe, was elected General Secretary. Corporal McBean has expressed shock following her removal as chairman. She outlined what led to her ouster.
The Central Committee of the Police Federation met. We had deliberation, and while differences of opinion existed, the committee decided that a reshuffling of the leadership and a decision was taken to install new leadership to the Police Federation.
Corporal McBean said that she's trying to come to terms with her removal.
While it is quite shocking, I have to look at leadership for anyone in leadership. I have to look at it as a journey. And in that journey, you have to be open-minded and expect the unexpected. And in this case, I did not expect it, but it's here, and I have to respect the committee's decision to move in that direction. I'm still a part of the Central Committee, and I'm still a police officer.
And Corporal McBean responded to criticism of her leadership of the Federation.
While the criticism will reign, it is not uncommon for criticism to reign about any leader. No, I do not have much to say as it relates to the criticism, because criticism will come and go, but it's how you deal with it going forward.
In May last year, she became the first woman to head the Federation, and she was involved in a major standoff with the government over wage negotiations. Meanwhile, the Police Federation is moving to address some speculations surrounding the removal of its former chairman, Corporal Arlene McBean. Newly installed chairman, Inspector Sheldon Gordon, remains guarded about the reasons behind the decision and insists the issue was internal. Corporal McBean was removed by the executive of the Federation on Tuesday following a no-confidence motion. This sent ripples through the police force and has fueled speculation in the public. Inspector Gordon has responded to some of the concerns.
Former Chairman McBean would have been chosen unanimously on May 18, 2018. And I never had any question about any gender. This has nothing to do with gender. As also, history has shown where the Federation stands now. Never before you had the committee split half and half. So 4 females, 4 males. So the issue of gender is a non-issue.
Were there concerns about the recently concluded wage negotiations?
No. Nothing of the sort.
Is there any kind of impropriety involved?
Not to my knowledge.
And Inspector Gordon is seeking to reassure the Federation's membership and the wider public about the Central Committee's role and functions going forward.
I want the agency to reassure membership. This is important. Agency to reassure membership that their welfare issues continue to remain paramount to the Central Committee, to which Corporal Matt Dean is a part. And we'll always address them in a fulsome way. I want the membership, as also the populace of Jamaica, to understand that also, that this issue, albeit internally, will not affect their general security.
We take a break. News Rewind will be right back after these messages.
NSW President Donald Trump's waste reduction.
Welcome back to News Rewind. I'm Kimberly Broderick. We continue our look at the top stories of the week that was. With the vast majority of small businesses remaining outside of the financial system, the improved pace of economic growth is not likely despite the other economic indicators. That's the view of opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, who was speaking on JNN and Power 106 FM's Power Talk Live on Tuesday. More in this report from Michael Sharp.
Dr. Phillips noted that the issue of land ownership by small farmers is critical to ensuring further growth in the economy.
And we believe and that we have developed some proposals that will fast-track the provision of title and secure tenure to these farmers, which will enable them to undertake the kind of modernization necessary. Buy the small, it is even a handheld tractor, put in the simple irrigation system and the pumps to run water from the river passing close by, that they can water their crops and not just depend on rainfall or loading it in a paint pan and carrying it up to the field. All of these things is improvement in productivity, and therefore incomes can be traced right back to the problem of insecure tenure. It also, secondly, we think the land problem would also help stimulate the construction sector in a much bigger way than is occurring now, because we have massive housing problem caused by the fact that a quarter of our population lives in so-called quarter communities or informal settlements, where because of this lack of tenure also, they are not prepared to make the investment themselves in proper housing in many of these areas. And so the driver that the construction sector could provide for economic activity generally is missing.
Being outside of the financial system results in small enterprises being denied access to affordable credit. In this regard, the opposition leader is offering two solutions.
First one is going to be to provide a much greater degree of business advice to the small and medium sector. They need mentorship and support as much as they need access to operating space. It was one of the tasks which we gave to JCDC, and it's an important task which is still not being properly fulfilled, because many of the businesses can't access the banks because basic things like having a set of accounts properly audited and kept in standard format that accountants keep accounts in are just not available, and therefore the banks won't look at them. But there's another aspect of the task, which is that many of the banks are not prepared to take the risk on businesses without a track record of credit. And we think that we have devised ways in which we can relieve this problem by interacting between the businesses and the banks and helping reduce some of the credit risk.
The police continue to keep a watchful eye on residents of Ramsey Road off Maxfield Avenue in St. Andrew. They are fuming following the fatal shooting of a teenager allegedly by the police on Sunday.
Members of the community set debris ablaze along sections of the Maxfield Avenue Sunday afternoon, impeding vehicular access following the death of 16-year-old Ronaldo Smith, a grade 10 student of Charlie Smith High School.
We are no bird, we are human being. Come on, man. Come on, man. Andrew Wilson need to do something with them officer, yeah. Who good make them stay, who bad put them out. And we need a thorough investigation. We now make this slide.
It's reported that around 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon, Ronaldo was at his brother's house watching a game when the police stormed inside and shot him. Ronaldo's mother, Carlene Bennett, spoke with our news team.
First time when I come in here, I be a gunshot bursting. And I'm seeing them drive him out and put him in the car.
Have you seen him since he has been shot?
No.
Have the police said anything to you?
No.
Was he wanted by the police?
Wasn't wanted. He's a school boy going to school. Every morning go to school.
Why do you think they might have shot him?
Well, them say what him in the yard. So them come in and they don't ask no question, just start fire shot. Because him dead is on the bed, him dead.
An Assistant Commissioner of Independent Commissioner of Investigations, INDECOM, Hamish Campbell, confirmed that it is probing the Ramsey Road incident.
Yes, I'm aware of the incident, and INDECOM were informed by the police, and INDECOM have attended the scene and are conducting an investigation. But it's very early stages, but we are very aware of the situation. A young 16-year-old youth was shot and killed.
Negligence. That's the word used to describe successive governments which have failed to address the outdated laws that govern the funeral industry. More in this report from Michael Sharp.
The outdated laws that address burial and cremation have been around since the 1870s. The question is, what difference would new laws bring to the industry?
We have waste from deceased that can be containing contagious bacteria. So you want to make sure that you have properly trained professionals handling those remains so that they can take the necessary precautions to prevent any epidemics from spreading. And I'll speak to this because the last time that we had some emergency from the government was when we had the Ebola crisis.
Yes.
And this was of importance to them now because Ebola will spread by how the fluids are transmitted. And if you're not taking care of the deceased and disposing of them properly, you're going to have the epidemic spread.
Funeral Home Director Scott Roman says several efforts have been made to get government to attend to the outdated laws.
The Funeral Directors Association of Jamaica has been lobbying for regulation with the government since probably 1985. And as we can see, up to 2019, there has been no solid legislation been put in place.
So what is it you think? Is it just that it's...
I think it was negligence from the government.
Yeah.
There's been no immediate effect that has caused them to take action, and I don't think that we should wait until something happens before action is taken. And as I said, I go back to when the Ebola outbreak was taking place, the urgency that the government took in terms of calling a meeting with all the funeral directors. Everything happened within a 5-day period. Yes, we're going to do this. Yes, we're going to do that.
The Romans Funeral Home Director refutes claims that the call for changes in the legislation is an attempt to prevent the smaller funeral homes from eating a food.
I resent that statement because Jamaica's population is 2.5 million people.
A little bit more probably.
A little bit more probably. And there is not one funeral home, much less 5 funeral homes, that would ever be able to handle the volume of deceased that you have to deal with on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So there is a share of the market for everyone.
Everyone, okay.
My cry is for everyone to be properly trained.
Yes.
And certified, and there to be a governing body that regulates the industry based on all of the effects it can have on public health as well as society. Because society is measured by, I think, 3 things. How you treat your children.
Yes. Elderly.
You're elderly and vulnerable, and how you treat your dead.
He was speaking on GNN and Power 106 FM's Power Talk live on Tuesday.
And that's your News Rewind for this week. I'm Kimberly Broderick. Thanks for watching.